Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Today's July 26, 2023. And this is the weekly JupyterLab call. My name's Jason Weil. I'm a senior front-end engineer at AWS, and we've got a somewhat full agenda today. First up is Jeremy talking about the JupyterLab logo. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that issue again, since it's been open for almost 2 months, and the JupyterLab console was also mentioned on the issue, and so I think there's been enough visibility, and it's just a last check if someone has any concern. So the issue is that this logo is coming from absolutely nowhere. I don't think anyone has the source of this logo, but it's on the GitHub organization. So the idea is to replace it with the official Jupyter logo taken from the Jupyter design repo. So I will proceed with this change if no one has any concern. So if you have anything to say it here now or on the issue. And the second point I have was about the Notebook 7 release. So we released Notebook 7 last week. And in the beginning of this meeting, we also published a blog post. And now we need some help. So if you have time, or if you want to work on, pretty much JupyterLab related stuff, you can also help with Notebook 7. So some folks have reported issues, but not as many as I think we could have expected, which is good news. But there are a couple of them. So if you have time to monitor the repo, that would be super great. And also check the discourse. Sometimes people will post topics there when they have issues. And we also have a 7.0.x milestone with a quite a long backlog of things to do there. So there is plenty to do if you're looking for making some contribution to Notebook 7. And that's it.
Cool. I just wanted to add one thing. So I think everyone on the call knows, but just in case, and also because this will be published to the broader public, because Notebook 7 is a brand new application built with JupyterLab components, it is something that anyone on this call or anyone with an interest in this call has the ability to work on, right? So if you've done anything in JupyterLab, working on Notebook will actually be easier. It's a simpler application with fewer extensions, and it was architected from the ground up to be a JupyterLab remix using the Jupyter front end. And so some of the tooling is actually a bit more modern than you might be used to with Lab, because there's just less that can go wrong. So it is not just appropriate for Jeremy to be bringing this up here. It's like, this is our code already, right? It's most of Notebook 7's code actually resides in github.com/JupyterLab/JupyterLab. It's just, you wouldn't know that looking at the repo. So you really are all capable of looking at some of these issues. And just remember, Notebook is like the most popular thing we've ever released. So if you want to work on something that you're confident lots of people are going to see, it's a good one.
And it's hopefully going to be our most accessible offering too. We're not announcing anything about accessibility. We're announcing very minor note about accessibility in the Notebook version 7 blog post. But it seems like there's a interest in an accessibility focused blog post in the future. And if anybody wants to see how they might help that effort immediately, we actually have a fairly large meta issue that we do need some help on. And I'm just going to drop that in the chat. So yeah, any support and any experience with JupyterLab will definitely help with accessibility also.
All right, cool. Any other comments, questions about the first part of the agenda here? If not, I dropped in, I didn't put my name on it, but the JupyterCon YouTube page now has lots of recordings from JupyterCon 2023. Almost all the content is there. If you're expecting to see a session recording and you don't see it there, please reach out to Gail and Sylvan, and they have a couple of files that I think they still have not been able to upload successfully. But please share this stuff, promote it, LinkedIn, Mastodon, Twitter, or X, or whatever it is, any medium that you use to reach out to the community. And thank you all for people who presented and recorded and helped produce this content. And then I had one other item, which is from the security team. The Jupyter Bug Bounty program is live. We got a grant from the European Commission about this, and it's been in kind of a pilot stage for a while. I just dropped a link into the chat if you want to check it out. It covers JupyterLab, Jupyter Server, and Jupyter Hub. So anybody who finds a security vulnerability in it can get a bounty of anywhere from 250 euros to 5,000 euros, depending on the severity of it. And I was looking through the rules about like who can participate, and I believe that we can, like we all can if we find issues, but please take a look at that. There's already been some submissions coming in. Folks from Integrity have been helping to triage these. And please publicize this on your favorite social media as well. We're also working on a blog post to try to get the word out more officially from Jupyter to make sure, because this is one of those things, it's on Integrity. Not a lot of people know who that is. So we're trying to emphasize, yes, this is an official effort, officially endorsed by Jupyter. Any questions about that? Quiet morning so far because we are at the end of our agenda. So does anybody else have topics they want to talk about?
Yeah, I wanted to ask if there's a volunteer. Well, actually, I wanted to ask Gabriel if you're going to be able to work on that one open tab shop issue, and if you're not, if there's a volunteer to help pick it up from him, because I don't want you to feel like you're stuck with it until it comes out. But if you're happy to work on it, that's great too. If not, now's a great time to solicit volunteers.
Which one?
Is there not an open JupyterLab tab trap issue? Am I misremembering?
Oh, no, yeah, I'm actively working on that.
Oh, okay, cool. I thought you were not going to be able to. Okay, great. Then never mind.
Although if you could follow up with, well, if someone could, I think we're talking about the same thing, but if you could, there is something you want to post, I can double check just to make sure that we aren't somehow cross miscommunicating or something.
No, I think it's pretty clear. The fixed tab trap notebook cells 14115. That one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great, cool, awesome. Yeah, I wasn't sure because I knew that Mike had reviewed it and there was a thing that needed to be changed, but I didn't know if you were still available. So I didn't want it to get stuck, but I also didn't want it to feel like it's your burden alone.
I've been watching an issue, and it's been incredible to see it go on since February now. But Nick has been trying to get this Mermaid Diagram thing in, and it seems like he just keeps updating CI and updating CI and updating CI. Is there any way we could talk about that as a feature? Because one of the things we talked about in the notebook meeting before was like these blog posts as marketing. I think the Mermaid thing is a feature. A lot of companies put out Mermaid as a feature. This is something that I really think people are going to like. So yeah, it would be cool to see that one.
I just dropped a link into the chat, pull request 14102. Is that the one you're talking about, Tony?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, opened on February 27th. So thank you for your persistence, Nick.
So
go ahead.
Is there anyone here who is, I think Isabella is, but is there anyone from the SSC that knows whether this thing hinges on the JEP or if this thing is independent of the JEP? I'm not aware. Right, because there's also a Jupyter enhancement proposal about making this part of the standard Jupyter offering for Markdown. And that one, I think, is still in the voting phase. I don't know if this is dependent on that and that's why it's still open, or if there's some other reason.
Since I was named, I don't think I know with confidence either.
Okay, cool.
I can relate my biased feedback on what I've heard from various sources.
Brace yourselves.
So yeah, indeed. So basically, it does not change the notebook format because the Markdown format inside of that is not currently specified. There is a separate JEP that will instantiate that. So at this point, the Markdown format is not actually controlled by a JEP or the Markdown itself. Because it does not change the schema, it therefore does not need a JEP and will not hinge on the JEP, and that JEP will not pass because, I don't know, whatever. That you can go read the JEP. Yeah, that's my understanding. So it has already been merged into NB-Convert. I'm waiting for the lab merge to update the version of Mermaid on NB-Convert. And I don't know if it's already been deployed to NB Viewer, but it's possible. So we're just end-arounding having consensus because there is no consensus on what Jupyter Markdown is today. That is my understanding.
So then is the only thing holding it back the CI failures or what?
Yes. I mean, yeah, I got that merge button. I am pressing it.
Well, sure.
So at present, you know, it introduces 2, 3, I don't know, however many new packages. So the integrity stuff cannot pass because our build system requires that your packages are published on NPM before you can pass that test. Obviously, it is not that. That's about it.
That's the check release one, or that's the integrity one?
It breaks a bunch of things. Yeah, it's check release, but that's called in like 4 places. So it's very hard to get a diagnostic read off what CI is actually doing.
Is this adding another drop-down entry for code, the cell type? So either Markdown or code
No. This is adopting the same Markdown syntax used by GitHub, GitLab, HedgeDoc. I'm trying to think else who does it native like.
Okay,
anyhow,
so just these other standards just support Mermaid.
Instead of if you do not have this feature, it will draw a unsyntax highlighted block that is still readable.
Okay,
you can
thank
still
you.
look at that and be like, hey, that looks like a diagram, you know, like I can read that, you know.
Okay, thanks.
And the Coalition of the Willing will draw it as a picture.
So wait, so just to be clear, you're saying that if I had a notebook with a Mermaid diagram in it and I used NB-Convert, it would render, but if I use JupyterLab, it would not. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yep.
Okay. So then Jason Grout asks in the chat, are we promoting a de facto standard? But if we already have a product release that does that, that sort of makes me think we either need to remove it from NB-Convert or we need to add it to lab, right?
Yeah, I mean, I inadvertently took it out of draft and Steve merged it. But that's not on Steve. That's on me for taking out a draft.
Oh, but wait, do you need the triple tick mermaid, or does it just recognize mermaid diagrams?
Triple tick mermaid. That's exactly what works on GitLab. That's exactly what works on GitHub. It's exactly what works on a bunch of other places.
Okay. Does anyone have like an objection here? Is it just because it's complicated and hard? Is it just because CI fails? Like, what's holding us back?
All right, I've got a question for Nick. How often does Mermaid introduce incompatible changes? And so I'm thinking of, if we support this sort of officially, as in we distribute a plugin by default, then if someone writes Mermaid JS diagram and we haven't updated to the latest version of Mermaid yet, or they're running an old version of JupyterLab or whatever, or we update to a new version and now their Mermaid diagram doesn't work anymore, et cetera. So we're sort of adopting any of the faults of the Mermaid JS implementation with regards to backwards compatibility and things like that. And it's not so much, I mean, we can just say we'll use whatever Mermaid does, whatever the version is, but there will be support requests coming in saying, hey, my document doesn't render anymore. Can you give us a sense for the Mermaid JS implementation here?
Sure. So it is already possible to write things with this implementation that do not work in NB-convert. 10.3.0, which I bumped to this morning, introduces a Sankey diagram, which is great. That's a great diagram. Love that diagram. Flowcharts that I wrote for NB Mermaid, which I still get requests for how do I install this in JupyterLab a decade ago, still draw. So this is not for writing publication grade, TIC-Z, whatever stuff that's going to render on a 40-year-old toaster. It's very similar to MathJax. Every time we touch MathJax, we break something, right? You can't just go to Kotek because that'll break something. You can't just go to LaTeX 5 or 12 or whatever they're up to. It'll break something.
So this is now a new core package and not an external dependency, right?
It is an external dependency on the rendering library, and it introduces a couple core packages to facilitate reusing it as a MIME renderer and as other stuff.
Anyway, I'm thinking here, if you separate it out as an external package that then is a dependency of lab, I think that's a way of separating some of those concerns out into a kind of like a sub project or sub package instead of keeping it in the core.
It should go in core.
That would have been a great thing to raise, 4 months ago, 5 months ago, after I did all this work. So point is, this has been mentioned several times in this discussion. I don't know what the blocker is. Architecturally, fine, I don't care. I already wrote this as an extension, right? And it was expressed in one of these meetings that people were interested in having Mermaid, any kind of diagramming, anything that didn't require a kernel. And that is what is provided there.
Nick,
I went through a lot of effort to go and do JEPs and make issues on 5 different places, and they keep sending me the other places.
Nick, one more question about backwards compatibility. So sure. You said that the Sankey diagrams, for example, will render in JupyterLab, but not in NB-convert. What do they look like in NB-convert? Are they an error, or does it fall back to the text?
It'll error and fall back to the text.
Okay, so it does gracefully degrade.
It gracefully degrades and shows you a border that says, I didn't draw this. This is not what I expected to draw.
Okay.
But here's the text.
That gives me a lot of more confidence in the implementation then. Excellent, thank you.
I have another issue if nobody's got anything.
I just wanted to drop in a quick plug before we move on to that, which is that we're seeking hosts for upcoming meetings. Option is the host by default next week, but if you're interested in hosting, please sign up on this issue on the JupyterLab Team Compass. Go ahead.
Wait, hold on. Can we close the loop on Nick's thing? Because I realized like it's an ongoing issue that's been going on for months. Nick has put a tremendous amount of work into it. I know he's gotten frustrated with this, etc. As a next step, when we're at a point where there's uncertainty about whether we should move forward with something, whether we should pull back from something, etc., I think the process is to hold a JupyterLab Council vote. Has it come to that, or do we have consensus to move forward or pull back?
We did take the temperature of the room. Does
I mean,
anyone have an objection?
No objection.
The objections that have been raised: one, put it back into an extension, take it out of ambient convert. Great. Then no one can rely on it, so it doesn't matter. So there you go. Two, the extension, yeah, great. All right, yeah, put your thumb down. So unless you're reacting to the vote, I don't know. Someone just put their thumb up and I don't know what it means.
The vote, it's support.
The
Go ahead.
other argument,
Yeah, I was pro as well.
The size of it is large because they ship a lot of junk in there. There's a lot of D3 in there. So it's going to add probably about 1.5 meg to the distribution. This is a sizable chunk. This is like up there with what Blueprint used to do, you know?
Is that lazily loaded, Nick, in your plugin?
Oh, yeah. Okay. And in fact, we lazily load marked. So we're no longer blocking the spinning moons on loading marked. Yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah, you bet. That's why I did it at this time, because they went to ES modules. And so you do not, if you have 0 diagrams, it loads 0 renderers. If you use 1 diagram, it loads 1 renderer. If you have a notebook that loads all the renderers, it loads all the renderers, yada, yada, yada.
So given it's been open, and I know there's been a lot of discussion around it, I propose we have a vote on the council list, or even better, a public vote on the repo. And then we'll have closure and can move forward.
What are the actions in making that vote happen?
Good question. We're still working out process on that too.
Well, that's what I was wondering. I was like, so what's the action item? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is there a consensus now? Nobody has. Everyone said they support it. Is there any objections? I don't think anybody has any, right?
Aside from the ones that Nick voiced himself, I don't think anybody has signed on to it.
And also, Jason just suggested holding a vote, right? So if somebody suggests hold a vote, normally you wouldn't want too much pushback on that.
Nobody seconded it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Well, and that's what
how many are in the console that isn't here on the call today?
A lot. The majority of the council is not on the call, is my guess.
Okay.
You're correct.
Why don't we, for this one, instead of making an issue, why don't we just take the PR and add the council list to it and vote there?
I like that.
I hate these public votes. I still think it would be nicer for us to privately vote, you know, like citizens of civilized places. But that seems like the lowest hanging fruit, the place to do it. We tag the JupyterLab Council team on the PR. We put the names there. We put the yes, no abstains there, and we leave it open for 7 days. And a week from today, the thing is over. I mean, barring any technical fault.
A way to have semi-private feedback about this is you can mention if you'd like to have a discussion on the private JupyterLab Council list, feel free to open a thread.
Sure. Yeah. So,
but if you don't feel like you need to, that's fine too.
I can add that to the front matter of the PR if everyone is agreed that that is a good path forward.
And let me thank again, Nick, for one, pushing us forward, pushing it through, being really patient with this, regardless of the outcome. Thank you so much, Nick.
Oh, gosh.
All right, well, we are about 37 minutes past the hour. And I don't think we have any other topics on our agenda here. Would anyone else like to bring up any topics?
Yeah, so I was wondering about why we switched from cookie cutter to copier. Because I spend a lot of time doing work toward and thinking about making the user and developer experience in the Jupyter ecosystem better for people. And I feel like this really just contributes to kind of tools and process churn, which I experienced a lot of myself coming on as a Jupyter contributor. So yeah, I was wondering if anyone knows why we switched.
Nick has his hand up.
It supports updates. So if previously you wanted to migrate an extension from one thing to another, there was a handmade script that reran with your inputs from your old thing and then calculated a bunch of diffs. This actually supports code mods.
Okay.
Copier is not unmaintained, but it's not, no, they did a release like a month ago. So they found some maintainers that would keep it running. But they have not been particularly responsive to improving stuff over time. So Frederick was tired with trying to keep the migration scripts running to support people that were using the cookie cutter. Copier lets you do that internally. And frankly, we should just make that a dependency so it's not another tool. JupyterLab extension, you know,
Right.
in it,
I'd be in favor of that for sure. If we're switching integrated in, I really think the developer experience is it's not good now. I think there's too many tools, too many processes, and it's there's a lot of churn.
So switching from cookie cutter to copier is really new, and it brings this one major thing we want, right? Like, just imagine the way you built your extension was actually taking an extension type thing that we had, forking it, doing whatever, and then constantly rebasing. Copier's supposed to help with that, but because it's new, first it was rolling it out this way, but having it integrated into the Jupyter command line tool would be great. I don't know if anyone wants to work on it, but I do think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, anything we can do to make the experience easier, for sure. And I think like the thing that I always think of, right, is, I mean, I think a lot of the things, a lot of decisions that get made are, a lot of us are software engineers, and we do really software engineering oriented processes and use a lot of those tools. So, I mean, I always think about, how do we accommodate someone who's a data scientist or physicist or biologist who's trying to write an extension or who's trying to contribute to core? How do we make this process accessible to those kinds of people? That's always what I'm trying to think of here. That's all for me.
Thank you, Eric. Okay. Does anybody have anything else they would like to talk about on the record? Because I want to make sure I save time for off the record discussions.
There's accessibility meeting after this.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, in about, was it 35 minutes? Because it's 10:15 Pacific. 35 minutes accessibility call. Thank you, Tony. Okay, I'll tell you what, I'm going to stop the recording momentarily. So brace yourselves. 3, 2.